This is The Brief. I'm Mary Ann Ahern. President Biden is making history. And that is my first takeaway of this week. Biden announced plans to commute the sentences of nearly 1,500 people and pardon 39 others. That's the largest number of commutations and clemencies ever granted in a single day. When Rita Crundwell left the courthouse more than a dozen years ago after pleading guilty to embezzling nearly $54 million from the city of Dixon, residents were understandably upset.
She had a ball on our money.
Crundwell set up a secret bank account to fund her lavish lifestyle of breeding and showing quarter horses. Later, her assets from jewelry to 5 properties and 400 of those horses were sold, with the funds going back to Dixon. Kelly Richmond Pope has written a book and documentary on the embezzlement. She's stunned by Crundwell's commutation.
It's shocking. I mean, it is quite shocking. I would imagine that if I robbed a bank, I'd be in jail a little bit longer than 8 years.
While Crundwell was stealing millions a year, Dixon laid off employees, faced budget cuts, even failed to repair city streets. Not until Crundwell was on an extended vacation was the scheme uncovered, resulting in those federal charges. Lee Ariano is the former mayor of Dixon.
This wasn't a victimless crime. She did a lot of damage.
The emotional impact, that's long lasting, because how are you trusting of elected officials? How are you trusting of your neighbors? I mean, those types of implications last for a lifetime.
Thank you.
One who has applied for a presidential pardon and is still waiting to hear, Congressman Jesse Jackson Jr., says he will, quote, continue to fight for the full, absolute, complete, and unconditional pardon, noting he wants the same legal forgiveness that President Biden's son, Hunter, received. Staying in Washington for the second takeaway, Christopher Wray is leaving the FBI early, before President-elect Trump takes office in January.
This is the best way to avoid dragging the Bureau deeper into the fray while reinforcing the values and principles that are so important in how we do our work.
Wray was handpicked by Trump in 2017, but Trump has since attacked the FBI and DOJ over how they handled the investigation into classified documents found at Mar-a-Lago. The exit makes room for Kash Patel, Trump's pick to lead the FBI. Patel is a former federal prosecutor. He promises to go after people he says unfairly targeted President-elect Trump.
I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state.
The FBI director needs confirmation by the Senate. He met with Republican senators this week. And in an op-ed to the Wall Street Journal, Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, cautioned against confirming Patel. Bolton is familiar with Patel's work at the National Security Council and calls him a threat to the Constitution. My third takeaway, Pete Hegseth, nominated as Secretary of Defense, back on Capitol Hill this past week, and he is feeling more confident that he will be approved.
This is how we're feeling today, right here. Feeling great. Fighting for the country, fighting for our military.
He's much better off this week than he was last week.
He's been on shaky ground since allegations of excessive drinking and sexual assault surfaced, both claims Hegseth strongly denies. Trump's choice to be the border czar, Tom Homan, he was in Chicago this week giving us a preview of what mass deportations will look like and the big role he promises Chicago will play. However, Governor Pritzker, he's pushing back. Border czar Tom Homan on the orders he's received from President-elect Donald Trump.
And I want you to run the biggest deportation operation this country's ever seen. Amen. And all that starts on January 21st. Yeah. And we're going to start right here in Chicago, Illinois.
Homan did not hold back as he criticized both Mayor Johnson and Governor Pritzker.
Chicago's in trouble because your mayor sucks and your governor sucks.
Governor Pritzker reacts, and he questions Homan's authority, but also says he will not block criminals from being deported.
And let me be clear up front. Violent criminals who are undocumented and convicted of violent crime should be deported. I do not want them in my state. I do not think they should be in the United States. But there are an awful lot of people who have lived here, and I think we run into them every day, who have lived here for a decade or 2 decades or more, who are undocumented still, for a variety of reasons, by the way. Often they've tried very hard to become documented, to use the levers that are available to them. But they're here and they're holding down jobs, and they're paying taxes that they don't get any benefit from. And I believe it's my obligation to protect them too.
I'm willing to work with them, but again, I want to be clear. There's a line they can't cross. That's right. Do not impede us. It's a felony.
There are, of course, questions about the process.
Is he going to be able to follow through on this, to carry it out? Is he going to have enough personnel, enough resources?
The Illinois Coalition for Immigration and Refugee Rights says undocumented families should be aware of their legal rights and at the same time have an emergency plan if they are arrested.
Who's going to take care of the children? Who's going to watch over the property? Who's going to pay the bills? How do we address medical issues that may come up? All of these things need to be thought through and planned out.
Trump's decision to carry out mass deportation, certainly a campaign promise that Trump voters supported. Alderman Ray Lopez notes the focus will be on criminals.
For those who are abiding by the law and yet are still undocumented, waiting for a path forward, rest assured you are not the priority of the Trump administration. They are focused solely on the ones who are here undocumented or who have some sort of temporary protective status and are committing crimes in our country, violent crimes at that.
Homan says ICE enforcement will be targeted and begin on January 21st, President-elect Trump's first full day back in office.
Chicago's going to be safer. The streets be safer.
Not just Chicago. In cities like Denver, the mayor says he's willing to go to jail over his opposition to deportations. And to that, Border Czar Homan says he's willing to put him there. And immigration, just a portion of the executive orders expected by President-elect Trump on day one. Trump sworn in on January 20th. It is expected to be a very busy day. So what actions will Trump take? Much of the focus will likely be on a campaign cornerstone, immigration. He's expected to sign at least 5 executive orders related to the southern border and mass deportations. Another big promise, what he calls drill, drill, drill. Essentially, his big energy plan. That reverses some climate policies and increases oil and gas production. We can also expect him to overturn some military policies put in place by President Biden, like ending reimbursement for military members who travel to get an abortion and restricting gender-affirming health care for transgender service members. Other one-day possibilities, pardoning supporters who attacked the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, imposing tariffs on imported goods, especially those from China, and rolling back protections for transgender students. Trump has also vowed to cut money for any school pushing critical race theory and what he called other, quote, inappropriate content. Another campaign promise was ending the war between Russia and Ukraine within 24 hours, but Ukraine's president has pushed back on that timeline. So, will Trump be able to accomplish all of this on his first day in the White House? All right, back here in Chicago, Mayor Johnson has had a very difficult road in getting his budget approved. I've talked with aldermen this week who said it has been incredibly tense.
So what I'm saying is
not what I said, Mr.
the
President.
remedy here is
Understand what I said, Mr. President.
You said
rising tensions over the Lincoln Yards development deal that Alderman Scott Waguespack does not want and Mayor Brandon Johnson supports. This week crystallizes the tension of recent months.
The division that's been created over the last year and a half is pretty apparent on these votes.
Not just the small fire today on the county side of City Hall, other figurative fires in recent weeks, including Mayor Johnson's communication director, Ronnie Reese, being fired. Initially, one of the mayor's top aides suggested a peace circle when Reese faced sex harassment claims. As for the Lincoln Yards debate,
I'm not sure that hosting a peace circle between now and Friday is going to rectify the issues with this project.
The big project this week, though, is the budget, and the mayor needs 26 votes for it to pass. He was set to address the media today, but the press conference canceled at the last minute, his staff citing the delay caused by the small fire. Johnson's budget proposal includes a $68 million property tax increase, plus increased fines and taxes on things like checkout bags and parking garages. The mayor's allies recognize the vote will be close.
And I think that by the time Friday comes, how we come together in the next 48 hours will be watched, but I'm confident we will.
Might it even be so close that the mayor has to cast the tie-breaking vote as he did earlier this year on two issues, the Gaza ceasefire resolution and an attempt to censure Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa.
I think it's that close, and if he is a tiebreaker, I guess he'd be 3 for 3.
Here's what I'm watching for next week. Fallout from the mayor's budget. Chicago teachers, they want a contract by Christmas. In Washington, more on the Trump agenda. Thanks for checking in. That's the brief for this week.